So I have had a very juicy response in my inbox to a post inside my Love Lessons broadcast around being able to hold your standards in a way that elevates your relationship experience. So I want to speak into this and give you some powerful tips so that you can stand in your personal power with your boundaries and your standards in a way that calls your partner forward. And to start, I'm going to read the post in case you missed it and you're watching this video. So if you have read the post, then skip ahead. Maturing is realizing you will unlock the greatest relationship of your life when you fear living out of alignment with your standards more than you fear losing the relationship. The level of the relationship you get to experience will always reflect the boundaries and the standards you hold. For example, continually nagging your partner about a low frequency behavior or a misaligned behavior is not the same as being willing to leave if the behavior does not change. One is enabling and one is operating in your personal power. A common outcome, especially for women, of staying no matter what when it comes to the behavior is that over time, it's your reaction to the continued behavior that becomes the focus instead of the behavior itself. Most women can remember experiencing this in a relationship or maybe the relationship they're currently in. I've been there. And fortunately, I became aware of this behavior of mine and I decided to work on it and change it. And I have attracted something new because I changed my willingness to stay no matter what. And I can tell you that losing yourself in this cycle is a far bigger consequence than losing the relationship. And I can tell you that looking back in hindsight, that losing yourself by staying, even though behaviors are happening that are outside your values and your standards, and there being no change, no matter how much you cry or nag, and then the crying and the nagging becomes the focus. Losing yourself in that cycle is a far bigger consequence than losing the relationship. So you are responsible for the experience you are willing to have on repeat. Now, I'm not saying you're responsible for your partner's behavior, but you are responsible for choosing to stay despite behaviors continuing that are misaligned with your values. So which one are you more committed to, keeping your standards or keeping the relationship? When you become more committed to keeping your standards, that's when you attract the relationship into your life that is worthy of your desires. P.S. You don't always have to change the relationship in order to attract a new experience. Sometimes holding your standards and your boundaries and being willing to leave genuinely if things do not change can actually cause an incredible up level in your partner and in the relationship. So it doesn't always require you to leave, but you must be willing to leave if the behaviors do not change that are misaligned. So what I want to say to this is if you are locked in this dynamic, because I had a lot of women in my inbox expressing their resonance with this post, and perhaps men, but I've been speaking to women, the first step is to assess if this behavior existed when you met. And if the answer is yes, then it means that it is your selection process that was the problem, or your misaligned values and you chose to pursue the relationship anyway, and therefore you do not really have a right to say that they're wrong or demand change if those behaviors were evident in the beginning and you selected that person anyway. Now, whether this is true for you or not, you do have some options, but I want to give you some examples of what this might look like first. So nothing is wrong or right, first and foremost, but we get to choose what is right and what is wrong for us, what we are willing to tolerate and not tolerate. So for example, I personally would not tolerate gaming, porn use, smoking. Like these are three very big, clear deal breakers for me. So gaming, porn, smoking, right? Clear deal breakers. It is up to me to set those boundaries at the start of a relationship. And that's exactly what I did with my relationship with Danny. In fact, I've done that with every relationship that I've had. They've always been clear deal breakers for me. In fact, I'll give you an example of the conversation I had with Danny right at the start. I think it was our third date. So there was a clear sign of some aligned values. And I'm someone who very much values my time. And I also value that people get to be who they are. And from my past experiences, I had gained clarity that I never want to be in a position where someone could say that I am controlling or I'm mothering or nagging. And I never wanted to be in a position where I had to mother or nag at this stage of my life. So I clearly communicated my standards and boundaries around these behaviors. And I did it in a way that gave him permission to be him. That if this pathway does not align, this is the way I'm going, and I'm not changing that pathway for anyone, and I'm okay if you do not align with that. If these behaviors are important to you, and not saying he did those things, but I was clearly communicating that I wouldn't be with someone who did. And it's okay for you to be you and follow your pathway if you don't align and see the vision of mine. I want you to be you and free to be you, and I want to be free to be me. And if that is not a match, then we're not going to be free to be ourselves in this relationship, right? So it's not making it wrong or right. It's just choosing what is right for you and clearly communicating that before you enter a relationship. Now, if there is a new behavior or you have matured and you have up-leveled your standards or shifted your standards as you've matured, you have a few options. The first option is that hopefully, and this is the most ideal outcome probably, is that you are in a relationship with someone who values you and who respects you and who cares how their behaviors cause you to feel. And hopefully you would be able to go to them and share with them that the behavior is not feeling good to you in its current form. So let's use gaming as an example. Your partner is gaming all weekend long. They're gaming into the night. They're not leaving any room for connection. They're not participating in the home or with the children as much as you like. And they're not using their wisdom to make choices that serve and protect the family. The gaming is overriding. Now, I want to be clear, gaming is not right for me, but it's not wrong. Okay. So in this situation, it might be communicating that you're okay for the gaming to take up space, but it would feel really good to you if these priorities were met first. And then that was like the icing on the cake, the reward, the relaxed time once you guys have had a date night and the house is in order and you know that it's in completion by a certain time of the night because you're prioritizing sleep and sex and all of these other things that are important for a healthy relationship. You are completely worthy of sharing that those are standards for yourself and that you would love them to prioritize. Now, at the end of the day, they have freedom of choice. So they can either care to get on board with your standards or not, or they'll get on board but resent you for it, right? So they're the three potential outcomes. Now, let's just say that they are not on board and you choose to stay anyway, right? Then you need to choose to stay, but you have to stop the nagging if that's your choice. If you choose to stay, no matter what, then you have to stop the nagging, right? Because the nagging is not going to serve you and it's your choice to be there, right? So therefore you are the problem if you continue to nag because this person has clearly expressed it's their value and they are not changing. So these are your two options. Stay and stop nagging, otherwise you're the problem, or be willing to hold your value. This is the third option, and leave if it doesn't change because it is no longer aligned with your values and standards, right? So they're your two choices at that point. They have freedom of choice and you have freedom of choice. And the fact is, you can only control you. You cannot control what another person does, and control is never going to help your relationship flourish. So stay and accept or leave and uphold. And you just have to ask yourself, what is the greater loss? Are you losing something important in yourself? Is it that important to you? Or is it more important to leave the relationship and uphold a standard for yourself? And that answer you can only answer. And that's going to be different according to every circumstance. The answer is not always leave, and the answer is not always stay, obviously. Okay. So, of course, it goes without saying that this does not apply to any kind of abusive situation, emotionally or physically. Zero tolerance on abuse. Make sure that you apply your own wisdom and common sense here. Try it on, feel into what feels like a good fit for you. I am not advising you on what to do or not what to do, not what not to do, right? You are responsible for how you lead yourself in a relationship and what kinds of relationships you lead yourself to and from. So I'm going to leave that with you, but hopefully I gave you some food for thought on this. And I just encourage you to always operate in your personal power, because truly knowing yourself and what you stand for is essential if you want to unlock the life of your dreams.